Vonnell is the creator of BAM!
What's up,
Delta
world? It's your
Dogs
boy
from
Ty.
Millennium Comics. Vonnell is a native of Virginia, Norfolk, Virginia. Went to school, if I remember correctly, in Norfolk, Virginia as well.
Mhm.
Comic is based around Norfolk, Virginia, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about. And he's a new father, so we were chopping it up a little bit about fatherhood before the interview started. So maybe we'll get into a little bit of that as we move along the interview. But ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Vonnell Young. Mr. Vonnell, how are you? Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, man, I appreciate you having me on the show. It's definitely a pleasure, an honor, and of course, shout outs to the fathers. I know Father's Day just went past, so of course, man, you guys are very appreciated.
Yeah, definitely. And if you guys don't know, man, the Dad Gang Instagram, they're doing a Dads on Parade. They're in, first they were in, I think it was California, LA. Now they're up in New York. And then I think you got to check the date. Don't quote me. They'll be in Washington, D.C.
Oh,
And that's the date that my two daughters and I will be Dads on Parade in D.C. with a bunch of other fathers, just kind of walking the city, showing people about Black fathers, the importance of it, breaking the stereotypes and the mold, even that we put on ourselves, right?
nice.
So you guys check out the Dad Gang on Instagram. I'm not getting any sponsorship from that. I just like the group. They do good stuff. But anyway, let's move on, my man. Delta Dogs. Let's start from the beginning. And I know a lot of people know you. You just had this amazing, successful hardcover campaign that you just ran. But for those that may not know you, and like you, I'm a part of Black Comic Lords, and it is all about trying to get more people into the indie Black comics. We are all about supporting those that are creating comics and stories and art that represent us, but also just tell really good superhero stories, which I believe is exactly what you did with Delta Dogs. So let's talk about the idea and the concept of Delta Dogs. Where did that idea come from?
So it came up from me and my family growing up. I just paid attention and saw how things were in the streets of Virginia. And so of course the story is about seven cousins, me being actually one of the cousins, which is the youngest one. And just the stuff that we went through growing up. It was a lot of different tough times. I'm like, man, like it'll make a great superhero story if we just threw some powers in there. And there's so many different lessons that we had to learn growing up, with some of us not even having that father figure in our life, or that had a father, and just how the different impacts and stuff like that, and how even the environment impacted us as well. So I'm very inspired to even write a story like this, because I feel like we don't really get this at all, especially not from our perspective, not from our hands writing the actual story and stuff like that. So I feel like the world just really needs this.
Yeah. I agree with you, my man. Even the side, the way you told the story, oftentimes we can get a story that's about the African American experience, the Black experience that's pandering or that's not really authentic, and you can kind of tell.
Mm.
Um, how were you able to tell that story and keep it extremely authentic?
I mean, when you come from the culture, it's really easy. Of course they make it look like it's hard because we know why.
Right,
Like you're
right,
trying
right,
to talk about a trip where you weren't there on the trip. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
it was really easy, man. Just how, again, that experience. We all know what it's like to, wake up and have that hot cone on your head. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
like
yeah.
how Denzel Washington had mentioned, so just dealing with the Black family and stuff like that. We know that because I don't see too many superhero stories, excluding Superman, let's say, that has cousins, as a superhero group, or
Yeah.
how close they are when it comes to, because in the Black family is a big deal. So like I said, it's actually really easy just to talk about yourself. It's not like we're
Right, right.
faking it or anything. Yeah, we've been through the trenches.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And something my wife put it very eloquently. She said, cousins were your first friends, right?
Hmm.
So when you came up with the idea, and let's start again. We're gonna start from that early onset stage.
Mm,
let's talk about the idea. Let's talk about what was the, as I've read the story, and
mhm.
I have my lot right here.
All
And
right.
actually, I'm happy to have met you and got some of them signed as well. I'm going to get the rest of them signed. Um, to tell the listeners about the idea of Delta Dogs.
So of course, just a small rundown. You have 7 cousins just coming from a family reunion, and next thing you know, something happens, they get superpowers. And then one of the cousins, which is the oldest cousin, actually used to be a part of different gangs. And next thing you know, they get tried up in a gang war. So the oldest cousin of the group, he actually used to be a part of the different gangs that are fighting. And next thing you know, he of course he left the gangs to be a better influence over his younger cousins. So what's very interesting about the story is that you come to find out that out of all the different cousins, he's the only one without a father. It shows that how important and how impactful it is to have a father, and the kind of like the route that the oldest cousin went. And now he's trying to again change his ways, with the help of his cousins, of course, because it's never a straight path to
Right.
have a redemption, right? And he of course done some very terrible things growing up, and now again he's trying to make amends for the things that he's done by being a hero. But just imagine this: you have again a superhero group, but the leader of the group is controlled by a person from a dark path. So it just has that crazy dynamic. And what I like to bring to the story is that's really different is of course how one another is kind of growing up, because you have different age groups. You have a 17-year-old all the way down to a 11-year-old kid. So these different perspective of how they interact with the environment, or how the environment is ruled over by different gangs and stuff like that. They have a different perspective and have a different opinion about what's going on around them, and how they react to it. It really shows again the dynamic of the different cousins, and how they respond to it, and how they how they feel about the different situations.
Right.
I want to think of an example. You have I won't get too deep into it because I'll go all day. I'll go all
Right.
day,
Right.
man. Yeah.
No, I feel you. So I'm going to go back to something you said. You said it was,
Okay.
7 cousins, and there's one out of 7 cousins that does not have a father, and
Yes.
that fact is very important. And I don't think you know how important it is, but that fact is very important because it actually does show something that we have been fighting against for decades, even within our own community, that Black fathers are actually there. Like,
Mm.
that's actually a real society. Like, if I even look at my family, I was one that did not have a father who was active and there every day. Then he did come back and he was there. But my other cousins, they all had their fathers. Most of their fathers were right there in the house or lived, down the street from them. So that's a very important piece. And I do like the fact that you're bringing in this aspect of these cousins are joining together to do this thing, and it's good. Don't give everything away, because we actually do want people to go out and buy Delta Dogs, right? So go to your local LCS, definitely here in the Hampton Roads area. That's where I bought all of mine. I bought all of mine either from you or from my local LCS. um, Connect with Vonnell. You'll see his information under him at the bottom of the screen, and buy yourself some copies of Delta Dog so you can read this amazing, great story. So yeah, coming from another aspect of your story was that they were coming from a family reunion, and this is a tight knit group of family members. I think the only other story or group of people that I know that are very similar to this are the Fantastic Four, where they actually go through family dynamics. Was the family dynamics one of the main focal points of the story for you as the writer?
Yeah, because I mean, like I said, you don't really get too many stories like that. So to kind of really focus on again how they impact each other, how even how the youngest impacts the oldest cousin, and whatever decisions that he makes, how the cool cat in the group, how he gets impacted by that he needs like guidance from the oldest cousin and stuff like that. It's different stuff that's in there where we kind of need, we kind of need that because again, we don't get that at all. And and I feel like that's one thing that the Black community itself can really bring to the comic book community, which is very fresh and that hasn't been really touched on.
Yeah. I also like the fact that you brought in the aunt, and they're
Oh,
always at the aunt's house, right? Because I had a cool
auntie.
aunt like that where I could always go to
Yeah,
the aunt's house, always create a little mischief at the aunt's house, and she always had our back, right? Do
yep,
is this your aunt? And tell us
yes.
about this aunt in your life.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of the stories, of course, based off of what really went down in the streets where I grew up from. So I can't tell too much because then it'll spoil the story. But
Right.
yeah, man, we had this really cool aunt, of course, Mike's mom in the story, and she always just looked out for us, and she always gave us that mom that mom feeling that we like us man really just can't replicate, because
Right.
just like how the fathers bring stuff to the table, the moms brings that passion, brings that
Hmm.
that compassion and stuff to the table as well. And the mom, the specific mom I'm talking about that we grew up with, man, she taught us so many different lessons. When we went through something and we would just really say angry or something like that, she brought a different perspective. We were just like, you know what, everything's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so man, of course God bless her, and
Yeah.
we need, I couldn't do the story without her,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be right.
Yeah, I can tell as I was reading the story, and again, the aunt hit home with me because I do have an aunt like that.
Mm,
Uh, I do have aunts, and I have two really amazing aunts. I mean, all of them are amazing, but my aunt Trisha, my aunt Diane, they
mm.
passed on, and they were always that cool aunt, but also made you, put you in check, make sure you do what you were supposed to do, but also kept you really grounded, right?
Yeah.
So that part for me really did hit home. And I think that's one of those things where you're saying the community needs to hear this story because I've read a lot, all kinds of genres of comic books. And Delta Dogs was it hit home for me. And I don't think it was because of the streets and the gangs, which is
Mhm.
a story that we've seen many times. I think the way the cousins interacted, and I had a very tight knit group of cousins, and we got in mischiefs, and we had those on. So this story really does hit home. So if you are, and I'm gonna probably say this a few times throughout this interview, if you're looking for a really good family story, you must pick up Delta Dogs. It is a great, great story. Um, the cousins and their powers. How did you come up with giving each cousin a specific power? Was this something that was indicative of who they actually are, or did you just put them together and go, "I want them to have these type of powers"?
Oh man, this is a long ride right here. So it actually took me a month to really work on these guys' powers because I wanted something that not only represented them as a character, but also something that, that they can kind of like really work together actually, because I haven't really seen too many different groups where, that their powers work very well together. You know, even come like let me not get it. Let me go ahead and get straight into it. So let's talk about Quan, right? It's gonna sound a little corny because I was a little kid when I wrote this stuff. I was like 12 or 13, I think, while I wrote specifically Delta Dogs. So Quan has a shadow power, right? Small spoiler alert. He has a shadow power, and of course, he's trying to be the shadow of his former self. His shadow represents his dark past, and of course, Quan is trying to become the light to push away the shadow and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
how his shadow works, I'm not gonna go again too deep into it, but it goes even more in depth of why I picked specifically a shadow for his superpower, right?
Okay.
And you also have let's say something that's a little bit more not on the nose. Say Vonnell, right? He has a wind blast that basically he throws from his fist, right? Like how in the world does that kind of like relate to himself? One on the nose thing is that he has asthma and that
Mm,
wind and stuff like that. So it's a small little snippet, but
gotcha.
when it comes to Vonnell, he lacks confidence, right? He's being the youngest. It's really hard for him to keep up with everybody else. And since again he is the youngest, so he's always at a disadvantage. So he lacks the confidence, right? But and sometimes his powers don't work because of that, right? But when he really does use his power and he really does capitalize on what he can actually do, he becomes the star.
Yeah.
And that's basically with any small kid where, like, if you just believe in yourself, you can really be a star. And
Yeah.
that's why his name is, again, Vega Kid.
Gotcha. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the scene you're talking about. I think that was in maybe issue 7 or 8 or 9 when they're storming the warehouse and they're
Yeah.
gonna save their cousin, and he builds up that confidence. And again, I think that that's one of those really good pieces where you have this hero who, from what I can tell, wants to be a hero, wants to be part of it, but is lacking that confidence. And through this story, we can actually see young Vonnell building up his confidence, even struggling at that time when he's needed to do it the most, and then overcoming that obstacle and doing it. In writing that story, was that very similar to a personal experience, or were you thinking about a time where you had to have this confidence but didn't have it, but then you built it?
Yeah. I mean, it was in a lot of different scenarios, and I just kind of like just composed a scene to replicate that. And I mean, and I think it happens in a lot of different younger folks when it comes to their older cousins and stuff like that, because again, we look up to them, right? We envy them, and we want to be just as good, if not better than them and stuff like that. And when it comes to Vonnell, let me see. I'm not sure if it's a specific scene in my life. Because again, I wrote this stuff very long time ago.
Hmm.
But what it represents is, again, how, because you see the different cousins when Vonnell's struggling, you see the different cousins react to it. You
Yeah,
see the oldest one reacting to it this way, you see the youngest one react to it this way. It's not until his older brother, and then you see the brother, like, it's not just cousin, you see the brother side of how how he interacts with his brother. He's just like, hey, look, little bro, like, he just levels with him. He's calm with them and stuff like that. And
yeah,
then finally it clicks. So sometimes we don't, as men, we don't need that shouting. We don't need that crazy contact. Sometimes, I'm not saying all the time, but
yeah,
sometimes we need that level headedness. We need that compassion to pull us through.
yeah.
So yeah, yeah.
I
I mean,
I had a I have a brother, and he is he is that I'm gonna give it to you because this is the way you need to have it, and
yeah.
this is very right. And I try to come off as, I'm gonna give you a little bit more compassion, a little bit more loving. I need you to understand that I know you could do this. Let's just talk it out.
Yeah.
So you're right. There is that aspect of life where each of the cousins are reacting differently.
Mhm.
And his brother, who knows him better, knows
Yep.
exactly how to react to them. Not saying that the other people don't get an ear, but
Mhm.
he responds more so to that brotherly love that he's getting. Another great aspect of the story, which, as I was reading, I didn't really pick up on that. I just picked up on each of them are kind of screaming at him, yelling at him, telling him what to do. And of course, he keys in on the one that he's more connected with, and that's also another aspect, I think, of the story when you're dealing with um, supporting anybody, right? Even though we're
Yeah.
talking about Delta dogs, but supporting anybody is that, you know finding that piece that helps individuals get to the next level, right?
Yeah.
So within Delta dogs, Vonnell reaches it with the love and support, of his brother, and that's great and that's amazing. Um, I'm going to go back to a few. I'm going to go back a few issues uh,
Okay.
when the aunt takes them to the woods to practice their powers.
Hmm.
Was there more for me? I was think there was a lot of good storytelling. Was there more times within the book that you want to show more of their different types of powers?
Yeah, man, that was very stressful as a comic book creator. It's very stressful to, first of all, because you have to pay for each page.
Right.
And the standard page, I believe, it was 22 pages. So to kind of like fit a really nice story into 22 pages, I was just like, man, this isn't enough. But of course I did what I could when it came to the different books. And later on, I was just like, man, bump it. I'm gonna add an extra page in there. So, but what you're specifically talking about, I definitely wanted to bring more of a just of them interacting with each other. So it's just like I had to kind of start towards the end of when they're messing around with their powers, kind of finding out different things. But I wanted to construct it in there where it's like, okay, well, maybe I can give you guys this later. I can show you guys some type of mystery behind, like, man, I wonder what this guy can do. I wonder what this guy can do. And I want to kind of like really put that in. You'll see it like later on in the store. I believe it was like issue 15, where you kind of show like, all right, man, I'm sorry, issue 6 with Josh. You kind of show like, oh man, yo, I didn't know he can do this. And to kind of have that mystery to kind of keep the audience engaged. I didn't want to throw everything all at once, and I feel like that was a good opportunity because I never had enough space in any of the books like I wanted to.
Right. Right. No, one of the things that I thought, or I should say, one of the deltas I would say to for future books for me is,
Mhm.
um, I like the dialogue, I like the story, but it moves really quick, right? You
Yeah,
just
yeah,
said, well, it moves quick because I'm on a limited budget to what I can put into you know what I'm saying? So,
yeah,
I think when I'm reading it, those stories, even though they're quick, man, you've done a really good job at making it heartfelt, right?
mm,
Those scenes, that scene when they're in the part when they're in the forest and they're practicing their powers, the scenes when they're in the car with their aunt, the scene when they're forming the plan to get their cousin back and storm the gang members' warehouse. Those scenes were very prominent because you could actually tell. Not only can you tell like strategically they're thinking about it, but you can tell the love that they share amongst each other.
yeah.
Was the love like, I'm going to show love in this? Was this also something that you wanted to really, really portray?
Yeah, because when you love somebody, like yo, you really down for them and stuff like that, you do things outside your character. Nobody in that group was ready to fight gangs and stuff like that. Nobody's ready to, deal with guns and all this other stuff, right? But as soon as that cousin get in trouble, they drop their personality, they drop their limits,
Hmm.
and they go crashing in, storming, and without a second thought. And that's why you see like, yo, it's very quick. It's very quick because it's like they don't have any time to think, and they don't really care about thinking. They care about saving their cousin. The only person that would be ready for something like that is Quan, but he's the one that's in danger.
Right.
And at the same time, Quan has always been the one that's been looking over his younger cousins and stuff like that. So now the roles are switched. So they had to kind of come up with that dynamic where it's like, hey, look, what you gonna do?
Yeah. Um, you wrote this, you said back when you were 12.
Mm,
Um, when you look back at your 12-year-old self, what would you say was the thing that inspired you to write this story? Because 12 is really young for
mm.
people to kind of write out a concept. I mean, you're a creative and I get it, and most creative people can do it. But what I would say, what was the thing that inspired you at that age to sit down and kind of write out this story, which you kept for many, many years, kept writing and editing and bring it back?
Mm.
What was the thing that said, I need to write this story?
Man, my brother, I think I was like 9 years old, is when he first kind of really started getting me into comic books and stuff. And we started writing our own comic books when I was like 9. And he was just like, man, I wish we can maybe do like a cousins thing. So I was like, yeah, that would be pretty dope. So it started off with us doing a band. We was gonna, it didn't have any superpowers in it. We were gonna do like a band and stuff like that. Quan was supposed to be the producer, and me and my brother was gonna be the singers and stuff like that. But when I actually wanted to revamp this and like really bring it to life when I got older, I was like, man, we can't do the voices in there, you know. So I was when I was like 13. I was like 13. It was 12 when we came up with the concept. 13 is when I was like, man, I don't think we can do voices in there. So I started adding powers, and I kind of played with it, but I never really thought I'd bring it to life, to be honest with you. But as time went on, I was like, man, all these different experiences with my cousin, I know we're not the only ones. Of course, when you start seeing Vine and stuff like that, you know that everybody has their cousins and how they joke around and stuff like that. So I was like, man, yo, this would be a very dope thing to bring um to the forefront. But I want to make sure I answer your question correctly. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah. Did I answer, or do I need to kind of go back?
You kind of
What
went back, but
was
I think you were getting there. Like, what was that? Was there a deciding thing that says, I need
Mhm.
to write this story? Was there something at the age of 12 that said, was there a story you read, another comic book you read, a cartoon
Mhm.
you saw, someone you met at a convention that said, I got to write this story? Or did you wake up one night and go, man, I got this story to write? Because you said
Yeah.
it went from music to a band to powers.
Yeah. 'Cause that was just kind of like the origin. All right, let me re-say this statement. Let me re-say this statement. So a specific scene is probably when me and my cousins reached one of our lowest points growing up. Something had happened, um, and I just put a lot of the different pieces together of who we was growing up. Uh, a lot of us kind of like, again, we reached to a certain point, and we I don't want to again say too many details and stuff like that, but it came to the point where when we went through our darkest time, I was like, man, and we finally came out on top. If it wasn't for my cousins, if it wasn't for all of us coming together and having each other's back, we would never pulled it through. So to put that in a book, I was just like, man, I know somebody else. It can probably save somebody else, because a lot of people, some people don't know to look towards family. I hear a
Right,
lot of people even don't even like their family. I was just like,
right,
man,
right, right.
family is so important.
Yeah,
If you guys just show forgiveness, you show that and recognize that nobody's ever gonna be perfect, and everybody has their own flaws. But the thing is, always still have each other's back, no matter
right,
what.
right, right. Um, we're definitely gonna dive more into uh the aspect of family and how important family are, and they are integral into how we grow up. And this family is integral in how these seven cousins
Mm,
find a way to work together to go after and save their cousin. Your story is kind of mimicking what's happening in society. Do you ever get that you ever get questions, or when you're out at different shows about your story being too close to what reality is? Because there's this whole issue of, do we recast T'Challa because you know
mm.
Chadwick Boseman passed away?
Yeah,
People are talking about this woke stuff, which 99% of those people are using the word woke incorrectly anyway.
yeah. Well,
uh, how do you deal with that, with telling a story that's very much so grounded in reality, but with fantasy pieces to it?
one thing is truth will always be truth. Truth doesn't have a time on that. So if you always be truthful, then you know you're gonna be really consistent no matter what time of the day it is, right? So when it comes to, man, I'm sorry, you caught me off guard when you said they're not using woke right,
Right.
because they definitely not. I
they're
mean,
not they're not at
I
all.
I can get on a whole tangent when it comes to that, but
Yeah,
we'll
we'll save that for another show.
yeah. So I'm sorry. Ask me one more time here.
So
Ask me.
the question is, when you're dealing with the story that's very much so grounded in reality, do you get any pushback from the story? Or
Oh,
in that that's the question. Do you get any pushback when you're out, or do you get more uh, people who have not grown up in a community similar to yours, or
mm,
multicultural community similar as how Norfolk was, or even a black community? Do you get
Yeah.
any type of pushback from that?
So I had a few trolls, here and there going to different shows.
Hmm.
But for the most part, people just really enjoy a really good story.
Right, right, right,
I don't even when I sell it to them, right? I don't even really mention at all that like, hey, look, it's a black thing,
right.
support black and this. And I'm like, man, look, our slogan is we put story first. So I wanted to make a story where it's just like, hey, look, I can even write an Asian character. I can write a white character, whatever, as long as the story is there. So when it comes to this story right here, yes, it has the culture in there. Yes, it has, you know, these characters fit the situations that they're in, and it makes for a very good story.
Yeah.
So do I get any pushback when it comes to that? Actually, not at all. Just like when it comes to anime or manga and stuff like that, the cross the seas type stories. We love those stories because not only do they really tell a good story, but we also get to see the culture of what those characters go through, right? Um, when it comes to Delta Dogs, it's just the same thing. They even when it comes to my white audience, they look at it like, man, like I didn't know that was a thing. Like, oh man, I wasn't close to my family, but I really love how their family is interacting with each other.
Right.
So, I get different stuff like that where it's just like, man, it's they want to know, people love to see the things on the outside of their norm, and they really actually get attached to it.
Hmm. Okay.
Mm,
So let's switch over to some money business. How did
okay.
you get this idea from your head to the paper to editors to an artist to
Mhm.
on the shelf?
Okay. I mean, it would just like that process. Our issue one was probably the most difficult this like book ever. It took me about a year to do that one because the artist had got sick, and he was sick for a little bit, actually almost coming up to a year. And basically he gave us a page like maybe once a month or every other month. And whatever he gave me, that was it. It was no edits, no nothing. Because again, if I asked for an edit, it took him a month to give me something of an edit, and the
Right.
edit wasn't even there. So it was a really tough time to get through that whole process. And of course, when money's hold up, it makes things complicated, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm not selling any books. So, but after that, I switched to another artist, and we start bringing out books a month, right? We was really rolling. I was working all I could to. I was getting like 90 hours at my job a week, just trying to make sure I could keep the stories going and stuff like
Right.
that. So, but I learned so many different things during that initial creating process because I never done a book in my life. I
Hmm.
don't have any friends that do books and stuff like that. So I was like trial by error, right? Um, One big thing, which I advise a lot of people, and it took me a while to learn this, that you really need an editor. Editor does so much more than what people initially think an editor does, but the editor is supposed to keep everything straight. They're supposed to look at a perspective from the outside looking in,
Hmm.
and that's where your audience is at. Your audience is on the outside looking in, right? And they can't think whatever you think that you're coming up with within the story. So they're trying to make sure that it's a healthy link between story and audience.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a lot of different things, man. I mean, I even try to do the cheap route at one point as well, trying to minimize on costs when it comes to the letterer. But a letterer is like a whole nother different art form, and that's another big communicator between the audience and the story.
Hmm.
So, I mean, it's a number of different things that as a creator, man, we have to, if you can't afford it, hold off until you can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I,
one big
you know,
advice.
I have, I'm a writer. I have quite a few stories that are written, some 3-issue comic books, some 5 issues.
Mhm.
I'm actually focusing more in on my kids' books. I got a kids' book coming out. I just locked
Nice.
in another artist.
Mm.
Um, how was it were you able to find an artist locally or within the US?
Mm,
How was that with trying to get your book published or trying to get your work done, right? Because I know for myself, um, when I'm doing my stories, my
mm,
kids' books or my poetry book is all me, so right, I don't have to worry about anybody for that. But my kids' book, my comic book idea, I'm paying someone each month,
mm,
based on my budget, and I found someone who can work with me to do that, right?
mm.
What obstacles or what things did you fall into, and how did you make that financial jump to do that?
So I got lucky, of course, and I found somebody on Facebook. That person, which was again my first artist, um, is a long story short. I connected with his other friend that that was the brother of the colorist at the time. So the colorist brother of issue one was an artist as well. So I basically just had connected, with through just different connections and stuff like that. And basically, I came up with my team through that way. Actually, they're actually from the Philippines. Really cool dude. And he actually worked with me on the price that I had on my budget and stuff like that. Now the only thing about it is when when the type of setting, right? We of course being he's in the Philippines, we're over here in the US, and he's not from the culture and stuff like that, right? There's nothing wrong with it until just those small details
Right,
is not being in there. I can't catch everything as a writer and stuff like that. You don't want to make too many any edits, like that because it's going to hold up the process. It's going to put a
right,
lot of strain on your team. So you just got to kind of go with the flow. But say I would work with a black artist, which of course typically American alone would cost tremendous more. Like it's just man, we're not Marvel, we're not DC, we can't afford it,
right,
right?
right, right.
Um, unless of course you have some type of supernatural stuff going on. But anyways, um, when it comes to again the cultural difference, I feel like you can see it in Delta Dogs. I try to minimize it the best way I can. But if you have, of course, the black artist, man, I feel like it'll be about night and day. Not
Right,
because the skill level is different, but it's just because of the culture difference.
right.
That makes sense. So that's one
No,
thing. That's a
yeah.
big thing I came across.
Do you think there's a way to get African American local artists
Mm.
to do books like Delta Dogs and work within a budget, or do you think that type of thing is just not happening right now?
Man, I feel like it's almost, man, I hate to sound negative, man, but I feel like it's almost near impossible because people got bills.
Right,
People have to be motivated as well. If you're not giving them a good amount of money, that's gonna like, hey, look, this is what's gonna take up my time because you need consistency as well. You don't
yeah,
want to put out a book once a year and stuff like that, or people are gonna, eventually forget about you because there's so much different content that's
right,
available right now. So, um, to find that diamond in the rough that would work with you on the price or even partner with you, that's truly a blessing. And also, man, that I feel like you have things that has investments, right? When you throw in it, it's a lot, it's risk to it, especially if you're not getting paid as an artist. But if you take that risk, it's a lot of high reward
right,
because if that writer knows what he's doing and you trust that writer, even though you're not getting paid at that minute, it can blow up to be like something like The Boys.
right.
It can blow up to be something like Invincible and stuff
Yeah,
like that because when it comes to Marvel and DC, they're paying out upfront money, but they're taking a risk to it, but they're getting a high return. And artists is getting little to nothing because they got their payment up front. But if you go on the opposite end, like, hey, look, we're partnering, we're going 50-50. You do the art, I'll do the writing, and this thing blows up. If it makes a $10 million movie, then you're getting whatever half of the writer creator gets.
right.
But do I think anybody say I mean, not just even the black community would do it to have that type of risk? I, it's really tough to find somebody that's would go along with that trust ride,
Yeah,
because either side can quit, the writer can quit or the art the artist can quit. And it's like, man, now you have all the potential in the world for the previous done creative work just all washed away because somebody didn't stay along for the ride.
Right. So would you say uh, do it out of pocket or a GoFundMe Kickstarter? What would you say would be the best? And for again, this is for someone who, and maybe tell part of your story for someone who may not doesn't have a following, right? So I don't
Mhm.
tell me your story, how you went through it. Did you do out of pocket Kickstarter? GoFundMe. What was your thing? And do you think that is the way to go, or do you think the way I'm doing it, I'm literally contracting and paying every month I get paid a
Mhm.
little bit, which of course means that it takes longer to get done.
Yeah. Um, my my best advice would be to build an audience. Building an audience, excuse me, building an audience and connecting with the things that they're already connected to, what would be the best case scenario. So as soon as the audience is there, all you have to do is create, during the time you're building an audience, that has to be the same time you're building up the money to actually fund whatever you want to create. And once both of them is at a high, you have the money, then you have also the followers to receive that. As soon as you come out with a book, you have a good hit because your issue one is the most important book out of all the books, other than the last book, right? Um, I would, if I can do it over again, I would definitely I would definitely save enough money to do the first book correctly and the best of my ability. And then also have the audience. If the audience isn't there, that book is not being funded
Right.
by my money.
Right.
And the money that comes from your pocket, that brings you more attached to it. That gives you more of motivation because that's your money.
Right.
Um, Instead of again doing the Kickstarters and stuff like that. I'm not saying nothing's wrong with doing those things because
Hmm.
that's an easy way to fund it. But it does something to the actual business owner where it pushes them over the edge. Like, man, I got to get this done. I'm
Right.
tied up to it.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But the
Um,
audience is key.
yeah. 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 And it's probably safe to say that you've locked your audience in so well that you did a hardcover release.
Mm.
Tell me about that. Why was that a good decision, and how successful was it for
When
you?
I did like a alternate cover.
No, when you did the hardcovers.
Oh, hardcover. I'm sorry, hardcover. Okay, yeah. So hardcovers. So we have 20 plus books,
Okay.
and
How many total books do you have out? How many singles?
so we have 22,
22
and
issues.
that's included like on our Patreon and stuff like that.
Got it. Okay. So you
Yep.
guys got 22 issues of Delta Dogs to go out and find. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So the 22 books. So I was just like, okay, we can do hardcovers. Hardcovers is very durable. It's very collectible and stuff like that. And it's very easy to go to the next one because again, it's hard for people to find 20 books because some stores are sold out here, some stores are sold out there. So I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, let me condense this. And some people just overall wait for the hardcover books because there's so many different books so they can catch up on.
Right.
Now, so to make it cheaper as well on me and then also the audience, I put it into a hardcover book because of that, so I could, you know, provide a more of a better service for them.
Right.
So that was my big reason of doing that, which is actually very difficult to do.
Yeah. And how successful was the campaign? Did you meet your goal and exceed it, or
Yeah.
exceed?
So during that whole process, I met a little bit short of my expectations. We sold a lot of different books. It was very dope how the community kind of received it as well. So much different support. A lot of people that was been waiting for the hardcover, they bought it, and we still get sales to today. But of course, during that whole process, I actually got really sick, and I couldn't do more better campaigns like I wanted to.
Hmm.
um because I was struggling to where I just like, all right, I can't continue doing this stuff any further. But now I think sometime next year I'll go on a better campaign, fully healthy, and really try to push these books. And hopefully I can reach the numbers of, say, the different YouTubers that's doing their own content as well. Because again, trying to get an audience, trying to sell them, because the story, I'll tell you this, the story comes last when it comes to creating books.
Right,
First they look at the hardcover, then they look at the lettering, then they have to read. They have to read sometimes one or two books just so they can like, oh man, this is a really good story.
right,
So again, the story comes last. So it's the pitch. You have to pitch them on the books
right,
before
right,
they even say, "Hey, look, I'm interested." I'll actually pick it up and open it and to see what's inside and stuff like that. So it's a lot. Even your website,
right,
there's a lot of things that comes before the story, and that's another thing I had to learn because I'm a story guy. I'm not a I'm not a business guy. I'm not a salesman. I'm not an artist. Not any of those things. But that's something that we have to kind of like take it up on a bootstrap just so I can survive and actually get to that story, which I'm really passionate about. And that
right.
makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, and within that, you're hoping people can sink their teeth into and settle into the story to keep reading and reading. Did you find it difficult for people who bought issue 1 to continue to buy the issues, or were they pretty much hooked after, say, issue 1 or 2?
I say it was about half and half. It was about half and half. Of course, as a writer, any creator, your first book, that was my first book ever. And the story isn't your full potential. That was like a learning curve. Issue one, I mean, I say it all the time, but I mean, I need to have a little bit more confidence. Of course, Vonnell in this story does have confidence. But anyways,
Right, right, right,
my issue one was really rough because, again, I went through the whole thing with my artist. No, none of those pages was edited. Um, it was just like literally, look, draw it the first time. That's what you got, right?
right,
And it was really tough to kind of deal with that, with the art, with even the writing because I wasn't up to par and stuff like that. But I knew I had something when it comes to that. But so do I think that a lot of people received it? Not, I don't think not as good as they could have if I really was on the top of my game and the artist was on top of their game. If
right.
that makes sense.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
But something kept them coming back buying more because
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. The people that came back for more, they didn't stop. Like they was on it.
yeah,
The people that I remember I came to one show, they read the first book. They literally grabbed the book. They walked away to some type of sitting area where you're supposed to eat at. They read the book, came back and bought the rest of the 19 books.
wow.
Yeah, it was and that happened like 4 or 5 times a day, where people were
Wow.
just like, let me see, like, yeah, the art wasn't really feel like, it was cool, it was manageable, but it was like they read it and they got to that ending, and I was like, all right, let's see what this thing is. I'm all in, right? Yeah, so it was seeing those type of moments, man, really kind of gave me that push to kind of keep going.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Did you have an issue with setting your price point for each issue?
Oh
One
man.
of the things that I think, independent creators struggle with is that price
Mhm.
point, right? So where
Yeah.
they're asking 10, 15 for an individual book.
Yeah.
Somebody else is asking, somebody else is asking 3.99, 2.99, even $4 or $5 for the book. Did you
Yeah.
have a struggle with that, or did you say this is where I need to put it? This allures people. This
Yeah.
helps me move forward.
Man, that's a very tough subject. It's a whole timeline of different prices and stuff like that. It was at one point, I came out with issue one. Again, I don't know anything about comic book creating and stuff like that, right? I bought you got printing costs, you got the artist costs, you got the coloring, all this other stuff, right? And it has a very, very hefty price. So, but I went to the comic book shop. The owner talked to me. He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Man, I don't even know how much to price this thing." And he was just like, "Hey, look, Marvel and DC, they're doing it for $3 to $4." So I was like, "Okay, all right. I'll do mine for $4, right?" So I was losing money every single book. But I was just like, I just want to get it out there, right? I just want to get out there. And then book two came along. I was like, man, different. It came to a point where I couldn't sustain it, so I brought it up to $5. Comic book shop owner didn't like it, so eventually I even had to. I couldn't sell my books in their store anymore. It was a very tough time trying to again pinpoint the price that was right for me. And during that whole process, I didn't know about cross seas shipping and printing and stuff like that. But for real, that's the only way you can do it unless you can get so much bulk, but you need a big audience to
Right.
fulfill that bulk. I
Yeah.
didn't have the audience at the time. I was just really just selling books at my car,
Right.
going
Right.
from different shops or going on the streets,
Yeah. You were
going
doing a disco.
going door to door, knocking on people's doors, like, hey, are you into comic books? I got books.
Wow.
It
Did
took
you really do that?
I did that for
Okay.
so long, man. It was
Out in the pavement. I like this is
yeah,
that
it was
drive I think your drive shows within this book.
yeah, it was a lot. So but it came to a point where it's like, okay, some guy came in and he was just like, man, he was trying to help me because he was some type of manager or something like that for Hollywood. And he was like, look, man, you still at the ground. You've been at this for a while. You got a lot of different books out, but your prices is not going to do you any good. This $5 price point. And I'm thinking $5 is already hard, because of the comic book shop owner kind of really installing me like, yo, $5 is too high.
Right.
So I was like, okay, this is during I think this is when all the prices, all the prices was just going up, skyrocketing up. So I was like, all right, I'll try to do $10. As a salesman, you got to believe in everything you do, or you're not going
Right.
to sell right. I was not selling right at all because I was at $10 price point, and I was struggling during the whole Comic Con and stuff like that. But eventually, I just had to get comfortable with it because at least with $10, I was actually breaking even.
Right.
I
Right.
was
Right.
actually breaking even. I wasn't making any money. I wasn't doing nothing to quit my job. I was actually breaking even and not losing money every book. So um it wasn't all the way until I started coming out with the hardcover books where it was just like, okay, now we're getting to the point where I can probably actually transition into doing this for a living.
Gotcha.
Um I'm not saying like, hey, look, I'm making some crazy figures. I was just still not making more as my 9 to 5, but it
Right.
was something where I was getting a little bit of a profit, at least to maybe cover,
Yeah.
most
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
my bills.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, man, the price point, man, it was a big struggle. Um, you have to you have to really believe in what you got. It's definitely an investment, and it doesn't just, it starts with the books, but
Right.
your main goal would try to get into, have it making a name for yourself, building up your brand. And that's where it's going to actually make a difference.
Hmm.
And not when it comes to just your pocket, but also to everybody that's out there. Because once you get that, once you get your brand, get your name up, say, hey, look, anything he puts out is dope.
Right.
That's when it's going to actually start paying off. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right. So what's next? So at this point, if people wanted to, before we go to the what's next question, at this point,
Yeah.
people want to communicate with you and connect with you on IG, on
Mhm.
Facebook, Millennial Comics website, Millennial Comics sites on Facebook, IG, or whatever.
Mhm.
Do you have a package deal for people to buy books from you now? How does it work? If people want to get in contact with you and buy books, what would be their prices for individual books or a package, or do you have anything like that? Because the main goal of what I'm doing is to help these producers and help these independent creators sell their books, sell their wares,
Mhm.
so they can keep doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. So of course on our website, we want to act like we're at a Comic Con, right? So when you buy in bulk, you want to get the whole series, okay, free shipping. Shipping is very expensive,
Yeah.
but we want to, we want to provide a service versus always taking. What I'm saying? We want to provide a service, we want to do people right and stuff like that. We want to bring good energy out to the world, and hopefully eventually it comes back to us full fold, right? Um, hopefully that answered your question. If not, I'll restructure it. Did I answer your question
Yeah, no, I was just saying,
uh,
is there a price for what would be the price for the hardcovers?
oh,
What would be the price for the single issues? Are you
okay.
signing issues for free and sending them just
Yeah.
to give people an idea of what they can, what they need to add to their budget to purchase some Delta Dog.
Oh, got you. I'm so sorry. I'm
Oh no,
so
you're good.
okay. I got off work at 6 a.m. Still trying to get myself together. All right. So so our hardcover books are $30 each. If you buy all four of the hardcover books, it's actually $25 each. With free shipping. As far as like getting it signed, you'll have to be one of our Patreons. We do everything for we do anything and everything for our Patreon subscribers. We even give out free digital copies for our Patreon subscribers. So, anybody that wants to support us there, that's if you want to get the hard the hardcore exclusive stuff, then you go there. But if you just want like, man, I just want to check out a really good story, then you go to our website and you purchase there.
Okay.
And our single issues are actually $10 each.
Okay. All
Yep.
right. So what's next for Delta Dogs? Are we looking at an issue 23 through 30? What are we looking at next? Or maybe is there a new story coming or a new title coming?
Man, like I said, I've been writing books since I was 9. I literally have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stories just as well done as Delta Dogs. I want to I want to venture out and do other stories as well that's just as good, if not way better than Delta Dogs. But I got so attached to Delta Dogs
Right.
that I gotta keep going. I'm playing over 99, I'm playing over 100 books for Delta Dogs. It's already written out. I just literally we just gotta draw it out and stuff like that. The
Right.
story's I've already wrapped up the story, whatever. Um, so yeah, my next thing is to continue on with Delta Dogs. Season 2 is gonna wrap up. It's gonna be about 30 books. And it's a lot of different seasons, but we want to get into animation. I think that's going to be the biggest thing for Delta Dogs is to do some type of animated, either trailer or episode 1. And I feel like that's when the books is really going to blow up. I feel like,
Yeah. You
yeah.
should try to connect with, Mad Twins. They did the book Blockhead.
I'm gonna have to write it down. You said Matt
Eh,
Twins?
Mad Twins. That
Mad Twins.
we went to twins. Yeah, we went to college together. They did you should, if you can find it, man. I'm sure it's still on YouTube. They did a
Mm,
animation for Blockheads. They do animation. They do quite a bit of stuff. They do some
okay.
good. They do some
All
good
right.
work. I'm sure HEADZ Blockheads. BLO. I think it's BLOK. Blockhead.
Mm,
It's about it's a comic book about a young MC rapper. All right. So yeah, but anyway, yeah, I'm sure like all your other fans, man, we would absolutely positively love to see an animation, love to see a trailer, any of those types of things,
yeah.
because I think that just kind of takes us deeper into the Delta Dog, um, the Delta Dog world. Are you thinking of, or since you've written them out, you've added more characters? Would these be more community, family-based characters, or would these be more superpowered characters
So, as far as like something on the outside of Delta Dogs, or are you talking about
within Delta
just
Dogs?
within Delta Dogs?
Yeah,
Okay.
within the stories you've written, did you add more power-based characters?
Mhm,
We figure out why? Did we figure out how they got the powers?
mhm.
That government group. I don't want to give too much away again because I
Yeah,
want them
yeah,
to
I
buy
got
it.
you, got you.
That government group that's chasing them, that
Uh-huh.
wants them to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Which way are you adding more characters to keep that story moving?
Man, it's when I tell you,
You see that smile
I
right
don't,
there, people? That smile says you
man,
gotta buy Delta Dog
you
because
gotta,
he
man,
is
when I
putting
tell
some
you,
real good heat in these books.
so I take a lot of notes I study every day. Like even when I was sick, I was studying every day because I love gaining knowledge on writing. I love writing. That's my passion. I do that all day, right? Um, you I study manga and anime. They plan for over 1,000 books. Like One Piece. I'm not sure if you heard of it.
Oh, I know. Yeah. So I lived in Japan for years, my man.
Oh man, that's the dream.
Oh yeah, I lived in Japan. Man, them big old thick manga, forgot what they're called.
Yeah.
Man, they would finish reading those things and leave them on the train.
Yeah,
Piles and piles of those things, man.
man, they plan so far ahead, and I was just like, man, I want to do a series when I take it serious, where things that happen in, say, episode 1 happens in episode 70 and stuff like that. Just things that's like really planned out. So I planned out for all that. So all that stuff is already being answered. Oh, I mean, there's a lot of different notes in there within the series that's you guys probably just haven't picked up on. Because of course it doesn't have context just yet. So like the government group, how they got their powers, different heroes or villains that's on the outside of Delta Dogs and how it affects the world. Because that's one thing I want to make sure that I establish in the world is that time never stops. When Delta Dogs is trying to save the world and this and that, something else across the street is also happening simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of different things, and then also anything that they do impacts the world around them as well. Everything
Right.
has a cause and effect. So it's a lot of different things, man, that I want to get to, like we only talked about Norfolk, we have Virginia Beach, we have Chesapeake, we have even Richmond and stuff like that. So they have
Yeah.
their own different gangs. They have their own different stories, their own heroes and villains and stuff like
Okay, I
that.
see where you're going with
Yeah,
it.
it's so many different things. This is it also has the history of, they had their own gang wars before the Delta Dogs even got their powers. The Sluggers, which is the
Right.
main gang, had to fight their own different gangs, whatever that was rivaling them with their
Yeah.
own. The Sluggers have pills, the other ones have their own little special drugs, whatever, what I'm saying, the case may
Right.
be. So it's so much stuff that we can talk about all day about Delta Dogs, that we haven't explained. It's so much more to explore. Delta Dogs haven't even got to their full team yet,
Right. Right.
Yeah, so it's
Okay. So they
origin story
okay.
still being
That's
developed. Yeah, so
a good lead in.
yeah, so it's a lot, man. It's a
Yeah,
lot.
that's good. I mean, that definitely keeps enticing me, and I'm sure other readers as well, to wanting to keep picking up Delta Dogs and waiting for those next things. Uh 50 years, man. Delta Dogs, highly sought after piece of creative work.
Oh,
Yes. Why?
yeah, yeah. I mean, 50. Dang. Uh, that's why it's an investment. Not even just on the creator side, but also the buyer side. This, we print out a limited amount of books and stuff like that. So 50 years down the line, when we're say 100 plus books ahead and stuff like that, or the story just has already ended, animated shows, movies, you're gonna want to be one of the first to grab this stuff, because we're not doing any more reprints when it comes to older stuff, if that makes
Right.
sense. Yeah.
Right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we can keep going. We definitely going to have a part 2 of this interview a little bit later when maybe some
Yeah.
more comic books come out.
Yeah.
I need to go pick up some more books myself. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Vonnell Young. He is the creator of the Delta Dogs Millennial Comics series. You can find those at what's your website, my man?
Millennialcomic.com.
Millennial Comic. Don't put the S in there. Millennialcomic.com. You can find Vonnell on pretty much every platform. Definitely go over to his Patreon, subscribe, support him, support the company, support the book. I'm sure, once you're getting back, as you're saying, once you get back healthy, you're going to go around, do the rounds of comic book conventions. I know Atlantic Comic Con is coming. I don't know if you're going to be there with a booth.
I'll be there.
So you guys make sure you go. This is going to be the first annual Atlantic Comic Con in Virginia Beach on the waterfront. It is August 17, 18, and 19. I know it's because my wife's birthday weekend. There's a lot going on that weekend. So I'm hoping that I can get to a little bit of the show, but I might unfortunately miss probably most of it, but we'll
Do
see
what
how
you
it
got
goes.
to do. I'll say that.
I know, man. Listen, my wife is going to come first. That's just the way that works.
Yep. Always. No other
So,
choice.
ladies and gentlemen, let's definitely thank Mr. Vonnell Young for chatting with us about his really creative and wonderful book, Delta Dogs. If you have not picked up these issues, please reach out to Millennial Comic comics and pick up some of these wonderful, well-written, beautiful story issues. And I get what he's saying. He was like, it wasn't my best work at the time, but I'm telling you, this story is going to grab you and keep you moving through all 22 of these issues. And I don't even have all 22 issues. I think I stopped. I think I'm at number 8 or 9 or 9 or 10 or whatever it is. But I have more that I need to pick up as well. So thank you, Mr. Young, for joining us. Please, everybody, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, pass on the video. I hope you learned some really good things about this this young independent creator who's definitely going to bring us more. We're talking about animations, trailers, cartoons, toys, action figures, the whole nine.
There we go. There we go.
Let's keep supporting our indie creators. Let's keep supporting our independent Black-owned businesses. And let's just keep making our community really, really good. And, it is the voting season, so you already know what I'm going to say. Decision 2024, please make sure you are registered to vote. Please make sure you go vote, and please take someone with you who maybe not have voted or needs to ride to the polls to go and vote. And if you need to explain to them the importance of voting, please tell them to contact me, Comic Book Hit List, on IG, or you can just leave a comment under the video here, and I'll definitely connect with you and let you know the importance of voting. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, yes, each vote counts. Absolutely. Remember, the majority wins. That's why each vote counts. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. Thank you, Mr. Vonnell, for talking to us about Delta Dogs. On your hunt, your boy's the Dollar Bin Champ. On your hunt, please make sure when you go out, look for these books. Look for Delta Dog series. There are 22 of them, and I can tell you it's a good story. And again, I haven't even gotten through the whole story, and it's a good story, man. So we appreciate you guys coming out. We appreciate you guys spending your time with us watching the video. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. For Mr. Vonnell Young, for myself, Cool Ty.
What's up, world? It's your boy Ty.
We appreciate it.
Take it easy.
You listen to the CD.